Welcome everyone to another episode of the Racing Line podcast. We're up to episode 89 this week, and we are reviewing the Dutch Grand Prix over the weekend. I'm joined tonight by Joey. Joey, what a race!
Good evening, mate. What a fantastic race we had this weekend.
You had a
I
great
mean,
weekend, didn't you?
me,
Because of the race, how good was it?
it was probably not even probably, it was the best race of the year. And I was trying to run through the races that we had this year that probably had that much excitement. It was probably, I think, in terms of the weekend package like as a whole, it was probably the best thing we've seen probably since what was it like
Melbourne?
Nürburgring 2019.
Oh,
I think that was a great race
oh yeah, yeah, okay,
in the rain as well.
yeah.
I think this weekend was much better than Melbourne.
Melbourne was good.
I mean, Melbourne was a good race,
Hmm.
but I think more so the way that the rain fell in both qualifying and the race, it was just an awesome spectacle of, you had multiple, like, and by multiple I mean like three pit stops in the race.
Yeah,
You
so
had,
good.
teams having to pull strategy on how wet was the track, how do we run this. We had some teams
Hmm.
going on wet, some teams going on into, some drivers trying to survive on slicks, for crying out loud. um
Classic Lando, by the way.
we'll get to that, but
Yeah,
McLaren and their strategic calls in the wet leaves
horrible.
probably leaves so much to be desired. It's like they become the Ferrari of wet weather strategy.
But
Um,
Ferrari out Ferrari themselves this week too. So
yeah, we'll get to that as well. Um, that's another one. But I think in general, just the way that qualifying started wet,
hmm.
the track was then drying, but wasn't drying quick enough. Like every stage of qualifying sort of had a different um dampness to the track, different track temperature as well, which I think was awesome to watch.
Hmm.
And then there was a few results that I was really happy with. I was really happy with Pierre Gasly getting third place. I thought like the way that he raced uh, on the Sunday was fantastic. Um,
That was
I
his
was
best
pretty.
performance by far in an Alpine.
Oh, I think that was regardless of Alpine's win with the other fella. His name escapes me right now.
That's
What's
how
his
good
name?
he's been. That's how good he's been this year that you can't even remember his name. He's been there
No,
for how
no.
many years?
What
Ocon.
was his name? Ocon. Yeah, I think like really that was probably the most competitive we've seen that Alpine in a long time.
Hmm.
Um, so I was pretty chuffed about that as well. And then I mean, Albon had a great weekend, and to get an eighth, I think, was a disappointment for them, which is saying something. McLaren looked great in qualifying, looked pretty good in the race as well. I think they caused themselves more harm than anyone
Hmm.
else, and then a few other teams underperforming. So, all in all, when people sort of say Formula One is a boring sport because Max keeps winning, I'm like, yeah, Max is winning, but everything, like even when you think about how Checo's weekend unfolded, the reason Max is so dominant is because he's an absolute killer, and I think the way Checo performs should sort of enhance the way we look at him rather than
Hmm.
detract from it, because Checo doesn't look like a world beater at the moment, and he doesn't even qualify second. So
Yeah,
interesting weekend.
I sticking with Checo. I said it last year when they were both really dominant that when everyone else catches up, I can't see Checo still being that, always coming in second. And I think he's qualifying. I think there was a stat out of the 13 qualies this year, he's failed to be in the top in the front row like 8 or 9 times, and he's missed Q3 a number of times, which I
That
think
is,
is
I would say the word is unacceptable. I think
mm,
in general it's unacceptable. The like we've said before, the great sort of equalizer, the great band-aid is that that car is so good. And he, like, even over this weekend, he didn't qualify that well. He
no,
well, do you want to start with Checo? We'll talk about him first.
yeah, yeah, let's
What
do
did you
it.
think about, like, in terms of qualifying? I thought qualifying was, well, he got to Q3, which is a thumbs up for him. So we should give him a tick for that. Um, the conditions weren't great, even in qualifying. But if Max is qualifying first by that much of a margin, I don't think there's any excuse for you to be seventh. Um,
Yeah, well, like
well,
I've said this before, right? Last year, everyone was up in arms about DR qualifying. I think he was average gap was like 3 or 4 tenths behind Lando. He's
yeah,
slow, he's lost it, he's shit, blah, blah, blah. He was 1.3 seconds behind Max on the weekend in quali.
yeah,
That
yeah.
is an eternity.
There was a part in the race when after they bolted on when Max bolted on his wets that he was catching Checo at a rate of 3 seconds a lap in the wet, and I'm like, yeah, it is wet and it's like treacherously wet, but
Mm,
that is talk about an eternity.
mm,
That is ridiculous, especially on a track that's in the dry 1 minute 11. It's a short track as well.
mm.
3 seconds. That's massive. Um, and yeah, that car is fantastic. Like we've said, so much about the car, but still, the the juxtaposition between how good Max has looked recently and just the mistakes that Checo keeps making.
Mm.
Um, I don't think they're going to move him, like I said a few weeks ago, but he keeps making it harder and harder for himself, and I can just see the needle slowly moving. And they go, you know what? Hey, they might pull the pin, and where we
Uh,
thought when they've said they won't, like we've still got half a season to go for him to um to sort of implode. And then there's
mm,
another thing at play now where I think he's going to get pissed off with the team because they're showing him no preferential treatment even when he's leading the race, which I understand as well. But for a driver, when he goes, "Hey, I'm first car in the queue, how come I'm getting pitted second? Um, what's the go?" And they're just going to say, "Mate, we've got going to be 3-time world champion
mm.
on a nine win streak.
On his home Grand
We're not
Prix.
going on his home Grand Prix. What do you think we're going to do?" So I
I
think
think
things like that will start to compound.
I think he will. They will pull the pin. Even Helmet started this weekend talking. His language changed around Checo,
Yeah,
saying he is replaceable for 24, and if he doesn't fix his game, they might pull the pin. I think Liam Lawson's performance, and I think
yeah.
taking one race in isolation, like we saw what happened with De Vries, taking one
Yeah,
race in isolation isn't a good idea. But I think if Lawson performs again at Monza, for me, it's either DR or Yuki move up, and I think they'll take. I don't think Yuki's in contention. I think they'll move DR up, get rid of Checo, and put Liam Lawson in that AlphaTauri. That's where I
I
think they're
think
going.
I think Danny Rick breaking his hand or breaking his arm has given them and
And
even another opportunity that they
mm,
probably didn't foresee using. But now that it's happened, like Liam Lawson didn't look great this weekend. He didn't look bad. And the crazy part was it's probably the worst conditions someone like anyone could ever be like really be thrown into.
mm.
Um,
Well, I think that's it though, right? He didn't make any mistakes in the race. In
that's
a
right.
race
Like
in a race that was so all over the place.
his job is to finish the race, and
Mm-hmm.
if you want to take it a step further, he finished in front of his teammate.
Mm-hmm.
So tick tick. We saw a few drivers have problems in the wet. He put his head down, didn't finish last, beat his teammate. Um, so like really, if
Mm.
he can, I don't know how many races he's going to get until Danny Rick's arm is better. I would say at least a month he's going to get. So whatever races that is probably going to be, and definitely next weekend and maybe the
Mm.
race after. So he gets 3 races. I think Red Bull have been given a free kick to do whatever they want for next year, and as a team with having probably the most ruthless
Mm.
ethos on the grid, they're more likely than not going to take whatever they think is going to be the best, decision of performance for next year. So for Checo, like we said, he's in a lose-lose position because for him coming second is well, probably the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and every time he doesn't, make Q3, makes a mistake in the race, um, gets a penalty coming into the which relegates him from the end of the race. Stuff like this is just gonna keep getting highlighted, and he might win a race, and people are gonna say he should. He's in the
Mm.
same car as Max, so
I think he's in a
it's
lose-lose at
it's
the moment.
it's a yeah it's a slippery, very slippery slope. Um, what did you think of the two-time world champion?
Mate, he's on another level. I think as good as that car is, and as good as that car is performing, I don't know if another driver, other than maybe Fernando, other than maybe Lewis, could be getting the same results or performing to the same level. I don't think anyone else on that grid, and I'm the biggest Daniel fanboy. Daniel couldn't be doing what Max is doing. I think he's just on another level right now.
I think he's definitely sitting in a sweet spot where everything has sort of come together around him. Um, and yeah, the way that he's driving that car, or the way that you can see him driving the car compared to Checo, and maybe
Mm,
Checo is the wrong measuring stick to use, because
mm,
if we were to put like a Norris or George Russell,
mm-hmm,
maybe even Charles in the car with him, we might get sort of a more apples for apples comparison. Whereas we don't, Checo could definitely just be over the hill now,
mm,
and maybe the car is actually papering over the cracks. Um, but just the juxtaposition of, he just gets to the front, puts his head down, builds these unassailable leads. There was a part in the race yesterday where he stayed out on the Inters a lap for too long, but had
mm,
such a commanding sort of lead that it wasn't he didn't have to sweat it. Stuff like I think it was when they came onto the Inters the second time, that
yeah.
probably lap 60, whatever it was. Um, it's just he's in that Schumacher or Hamilton mode when they were just mowing through championships, and the only thing that's going to stop them is a rule change, or themselves getting bored and wanting another challenge. Um,
And he seems
and I
that
think
type.
to want another challenge,
Mm,
yeah, I think he definitely seems that type to want another challenge. But he also said something very interesting this weekend, which was you don't get many championships that are a walk in
mm,
the park like how it is now. Not a walk. He didn't say walk in the park, but he said like where they come together like how it's coming together now.
mm,
You might get one or two in your career. Uh, so he said, I want to make the most of it, because I don't know, what's going to happen in the future. And, Formula One is such a fickle sport. You can go from world champions to mid-pack team of one rule change. Like we've seen it so many times with Red
mm.
Bull themselves, with Ferrari, with Mercedes more recently now. Um, but like the word that always comes to me is that he just looks imperious.
Mm.
And to get that record equaling win of Vettel's at home in front of the Dutch crowd, super party atmosphere. Um, no one left even after that downpour at the end of the race. Like it was still chock a block. What a like! I know a lot of people don't like him. I'm finding less and less not to like about him, because I mean I suppose he'll probably get to that stage where we think of him like Lewis when after Lewis's championships, but he doesn't talk as much. So there's less
Mm.
stuff for him to grind your gears about, because you don't hear from him that much. And then when you hear from him, uh, he always speaks about the challenges that him and the sort of team
Mm.
have faced, but not from a sort of like windy, or
Mm.
not windy, like whingy or sort of meta way. He just sort of says it how it is, and I think it just grinds people's gears less, I suppose.
Yeah, look, I liked him a lot less when he was younger. I couldn't stand him when he was younger.
Yeah, he's
He was a
definitely
little,
matured heaps.
yeah, and yeah, like Lewis annoys me. Lewis was really
I
annoying when he
enjoyed
was
Lewis.
Vinny.
I enjoyed Lewis when he was younger.
Yeah, I see. It's the opposite for me. Same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think Max, he's matured. He may be a little arrogant, but I think you have to be that good. Like, I don't think you can be as good as what he is at the moment without being having that little bit of arrogance. I think he's doing a great job, and I'm not sick of him winning at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that's a
It'll
testament
come.
to it. Yeah, it probably
It'll
will.
definitely. I wasn't sick of Lewis after he'd won his third champion, like when he
Mm.
was winning his third championship at Mercedes, and now that he's not winning as much anymore, I actually am not. It's so funny how it changes. Like
Mm.
I remember, uh, and Alonso, the year Alonso lost his two streak. By that stage, I was sick of Alonso winning. Um, and then the same thing happened with Hamilton. Uh, and I'm sure the same thing will happen with Verstappen, but it just hasn't got to that stage yet.
Yeah, but I think
What
everyone's.
was your
Mm.
what was your thoughts on Alpine this weekend?
Gasly looked a lot better. Um, Ocon, I don't know how do I say this? I don't know if Ocon is justifying a contract extension at this stage. His contract's up at the end of next year. I think he's kind of in the same boat as Stroll, not as bad as Stroll. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, we'll get to Stroll. I
Yeah,
heard something different this weekend.
I think I know where you're going with that. But is is he the guy to be alongside Gasly to push that team forward? And I don't know if Ocon. He's been in the team now for what, since 2019? I think he signed when Daniel was still there. Well, other than the one RC win that he got and a couple of podiums, like what has he really achieved with that team? Whereas Gasly's been there for half a year and he already seems to be outperforming him.
Um, I would like to look at their head to head. I might pull it up now. Um, I th- I thought even Ocon this weekend was pretty good. I think during the race itself, he got a bit gypped. In terms of probably they played a pretty ballsy strategy in terms of putting him on the wets for that second pit stop early,
Hmm.
and then unfortunately it sort of went tits up for him because they red flagged the race um
Yeah, because
because of
you can't race in the wet
the
these days.
it was because of the what's his name, Joe's crash, and I can understand why they called a red flag because of Joe's crash, because it's going to take some time to move that car.
Mm.
And I think there's a few things at play. Um, but I think in general, the fact that I think that's what, two double points finishes in a row for them now. Um,
Without Otmar.
or without Otmar. Like, can you look at their results from this year?
Probably pretty
Ocon
even.
34 points, Gasly 31.
Yeah.
Um, race finishes, they're 5-5 each, qualifying 7-5 to Gasly, fastest laps 9-3 to Gasly. Um,
But that's what I'm saying, right?
laps
Ocon's
laps in
been
the
there.
top 10. Ocon's got more laps in the top 10, and they both got best results with which are third.
But
Um,
I guess what I'm like, Gasly's only been there for half a year and he's already performing to the same level as someone who's been in that car for 5 years.
yeah, but I think this is on the flip side, this is the best car that they've given any of their drivers,
Oh, last year was
really.
pretty good. But
I think last year's car looks better than at the moment because that team has had just such an unfortunate string of luck as well this year.
mm,
Um, and that's like, you make your own luck, qualify better, I suppose. Uh, but in terms of like how the head, like my view on Ocon is, if he stays around and abouts the performance of that Gasly gives you this year and next year, 100% keep him. Um, if the thing, if he falls like substantially below, I would say then think about moving him on. But if you're trying to build yourself into a championship team, it probably is better to have a driver hierarchy. And if Gasly is to take that top spot, and Ocon is close or close enough. Like really, the best thing about those two drivers is that because they're so close, you can tell um, when it's when upgrades on the car are working for the betterment of
Mm.
the car, I suppose. Um, and like I've said a few times, I think uh, sort of like also how McLaren was when their car was shit. Alpine have to fix the problems in that car and in the way that the team is running before they start thinking about getting rid of drivers.
Yeah, I don't know. I just
But
think
like
a team.
this weekend, I thought they looked in race trim and
Mm,
they looked really good at Silverstone as well. And Gasly got hit off by I think it was Sonoda. I can't remember who hit him off. Oh
probably
no,
Yuki.
Stroll. It was
The
Stroll.
strolling ball.
Um, yeah, but I think this weekend, same thing as well. Like the way that they were racing through the pack, the way that their tires lasted, they probably had a few calls in pit strategy that were left, up in the air. I think a lot of teams had that as well.
Mm,
But the way that they were able to race through the pack um, gave me a lot of hope for that team, especially once everyone's new tires sort of started to wear out. They
mm,
had really good pace on those worn tires. Um, at a track that sort of you need a bit of both. You need straight line speed, which they have. You need aero. Well, apparently you needed aero, but Williams didn't seem to need it. Um, which they
Williams.
which they also had. I have we'll get to them later, but I have no idea what the philosophy of that race car is anymore because that did not make. Oh, it made somewhat sense, but
I just
so
think
odd.
Alex is outperforming it, mate. That's all.
I yeah, I don't think he was. I don't think he's outperforming. I just think he's. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, for Alpine,
Mm,
I think pushing on to the second half of the year, first of all, great points for them, third place, and then I think Ocon got ninth. I think he ended up getting 10th. So he got
mm.
a nice lonely point for the team. But in terms of the way that he was racing in that race, probably deserved a bit more. Um, Probably call a bit of a better strategy, I'd say, next time. But it looks like they're finally getting, somewhat of their stuff together, which is better for the sport.
Speaking of calling better strategies,
Mm.
our one of our local boys and his Papaya Army and their strategy calls in the wet, mate. What's going on there?
There
Like,
was there was so many bad calls in this race, and to call them bad calls, I feel sort of like an imposter because I have no idea what it takes to make a call in a
mm,
Formula One race. But I'm sitting at home, half the world away, and I can see that half the track is flooded.
yeah,
How these teams can't see it and they're sitting there baffles me. It absolutely baffles me to be like, oh, we can like even my beloved Williams team. It's like, all right, we went round an extra lap. The rain is definitely there, but now we're not gonna, we're just gonna persevere with it. And then in 4 laps, you've lost about 50 seconds. It's like,
oh,
guys, and it wasn't just them. Like there's so many teams that had these daft calls. Look out the pit box and you can see the sky is black,
but
you know?
like McLaren has a history of this. Like they need to sort their wet weather strategy out. Like honestly, like it just,
do the opposite of what you think.
but like they did it with both cars. Like at least
Yeah,
roll the dice
yeah.
and bring one in.
They had great race pace this weekend. They had
But
um really good like sort of tire preservation as well this weekend. The car looked like it was really fast, and they left with probably
peanuts.
oh they yeah they left with peanuts. Like they for what they could have got with the pace that they had. Um, I think as a team, and here's the thing: from where they started this year, getting a double point, double
Mm.
points finish is so much better than what they probably could have dreamed of. But
The
the
goalposts have moved.
the goalposts have definitely moved, especially if the qualifying that they put
Mm.
on. Um,
But how good?
like,
How
like like what you said though, split up your car strategy. no point, both cars suffering.
How good did Oscar look though when he came back out?
I've I think I think it's testament to Oscar this year. I have forgotten that he's a rookie.
100%.
He's been unfortunate. I think the team have screwed him a few times now. Um, it's a team sport. It is what it is. But in terms of what you're seeing from him as a driver, pulling off moves, I think he had this awesome move around the outside on one of those
Mm.
um,
On the banking,
on
was
the
it?
on the banking corners. Just pulling off stuff. He looks like a total pro. You can see, you can really see between him and I think like a driver like Logan Sargent,
Mm.
someone who coming out of F2 is the final product ready for the big time, and
Mm-hmm.
someone who's more of a project who's going to need more time to sort of be ready for the big time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think the addition that he's having on that team in terms of expectations of resetting the goalposts, the way he speaks about races, the intelligence that he sort of speaks about, I can only see him as an asset to that team.
Do you
Um,
do you see Red Bull making a move for him eventually? Because I do, with
um,
With the Mark Webber connection.
to be honest, if Red Bull was to make a move for anyone at McLaren, I'd still expect them to make a move for Lando. Um,
Yeah, I don't know.
realistically, realistically, Lando is still performing better in every session, like pretty much to Oscar, and it is close, and he's been there for a longer time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you would expect him to as well. But could I see Oscar going to Red Bull? Why not? I think he's definitely made of the right minerals.
I genuinely think
He's having a
2026.
great rookie year.
I
He's having
think
a fantastic rookie year.
with the Mark Webber connection, I think Daniel goes to Red Bull until 26 when the new regs come in, and Oscar moves across to Red
How
Bull.
long? How long's his contract? Because I know one thing that Mark Webber's not going to do. He's not going to put him in a life of servitude kind of contract that Norris is
No,
on.
no, 100%.
They're
It
gonna they're
only
gonna play the short safe game.
I
So in that respect, I reckon he might be in a perfect position to pounce when that happens.
mm, I genuinely think Mark and Christian's admitted it. He said that they made a massive mistake not taking on Oscar as it is one of the junior drivers because they looked at him and they thought, no, we'll pass. But
I think of all the teams who have made a mistake for Oscar, it's Alpine.
oh yeah,
You know,
100%.
as 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 easy as it might be to say now, I would love to see what he could have done in that car at the start of the year when it was actually
Gun.
when it was a better car than what McLaren had. Because even now, comparable to the McLaren, they're probably pretty close. They're probably closer than what we think. Um, and for the fact that McLaren have got him, and he's fitted like a glove.
Mm.
So
My only
yeah,
concern, my only concern is that he becomes another Australian that shows a lot of promise and doesn't deliver. But
well, what's the question really is like, what is delivering?
a world championship.
Because yeah, that is delivering, but realistically, is it delivering?
We
Like the
haven't had
fact that we
one.
have,
We haven't had one since 1980. We need one.
but let's put it in context. The fact that we have every one of our drivers who goes to Formula One seems to at least win races. When you look at, drivers from Japan, drivers from the States,
Mm.
drivers from some European countries, um, I think we push like I don't think the expectation should be world championships. I'd love it for it to be world championships, but the fact that if you can snag a couple wins, maybe get 10 wins. If you can get 10 wins as a Formula One driver, you're in such elite company with that many wins.
Yeah,
Um,
like
I would say that is sick.
if
Like,
he was
is Danny Rick has Danny Rick been a success? How many
uh,
drivers on the grid have got as many wins as Danny Rick? Maybe
Bottas,
five.
Bottas, Max, Lewis,
Lewis,
Fernando, and I think that's it. Because Checo's
yeah,
only got
maybe Checo.
five. Checo's got five.
Yeah. What's Danny Rick got? Seven.
Who?
Danny Rick, what's he got? Five, seven,
Eight.
eight. Okay.
Checo's
So,
got Leclerc's got maybe five as well. But the thing with
okay.
Danny Rick is, we all thought he was going to win a championship when Red Bull delivered that car because he was winning races in that thing that didn't deserve to win races, and then he up and left.
Yeah. But look, look whose competition was.
Yeah, I'm not saying he would have won the championship with Max there, but he could have had bloody 15 race wins at this point.
Yeah, but does having 9 wins to 15 wins really change the way that you're looked at?
No, but for
I would say no.
I think for Daniel, the difference between Daniel and Oscar, and as I said, biggest Daniel fan, difference between the two of them is Oscar won F4, F3,
Yeah,
F2.
Oscar
He's come
Oscar is
through
in a
and everyone wants him, kind of thing.
Oscar is in a group that is unheralded. I don't even think Max did it. What Oscar's done, I think it was only what George and
George.
Leclerc. But the one thing I will say is look at both those races. They've both come to Formula One. Neither
Mm.
of them have really been close to a championship. Um, so this the circumstances and the situations are so important.
I
Having
th-
said that,
I
what you
th-
say is the way he came into the
yeah.
whole thing. We've never had a driver come in
Mm-mm.
and be that heralded, I suppose, which is
I,
definitely true.
I think the biggest difference between George, Charles, and Oscar, those two were tied to Mercedes for George. So he was always going to the top team. And Charles has always been a Ferrari driver. Oscar broke apart from his academy straight away. So I think he's one of those that is going to go for the top car, regardless of who he's tied with. So he'll make that killer move, whereas I don't think George or Charles will. I think they're going to stay loyal to their teams.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I also think Mark Webber's going to be the kind of guy who's going to
Mm-hmm.
very much sort of teach him, or not teach him, steer him clear of the mistakes that probably set him back in his career as well.
Just
Um,
don't follow the Danny Rick or Fernando
no,
Alonso school of thought.
I want to see nothing more than to see Oscar be a world champion.
Mm,
I just think like Formula One is such a fickle sport
mm,
to for that to be your expectation. I don't think. Let's put it this way:
mm.
those three drivers, Charles, George, and Oscar, I only think there's room for maybe one or two of them to be a world champion.
Yeah,
Not all of
well,
them are going to get there. So would their careers be failures if that was the case?
no, I'm not saying failures. I just think
You look at a driver like Mika Hakkinen. If McLaren never delivered those amazing cars for 2 years, in the 90s, would his career have been a failure up until that stage?
no, not
Or
yeah.
or even like Damon Hill when he got that lucky that year in the Williams when it was the best car. Like
Damn
you
it.
can't you can't I think being there and like longevity in itself is such a is a success. It's just what level of success you're going to get to.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is I want an Aussie to win a world championship. We thought Daniel was going to do it. He didn't.
We did.
Mark was close, but never did. And Oscar's come in with all this hype. I think the hope is there that he will eventually, but we'll see.
Imagine if Oscar's a driver who brings back McLaren to their former glory. What a story.
Look, mate, fingers crossed. That's a win-win for me.
Let's
Um,
talk about my favorite team on the grid, the team that keeps on giving, the
Ferrari.
team that no matter what they change, they still stay the same. No matter what they do, they can't stay out of can't stay out of their own way. The one and only Forza Ferrari.
Uh,
My goodness. My goodness. And this is from a weekend where when one of the cars came fourth. Or was it fifth?
uh,
Fifth.
fifth
So I
because
think
yeah, fifth.
Harris.
Yep.
So one of the cars had a pretty decent weekend. But come on, guys. Come on, guys. What team, when it is raining outside, doesn't have tires at the ready for when their driver enters the pit lane?
I
Where
did.
were where were tires? Where
I
were
did.
they?
I did see this. I read something about this. So the decision to come into the box was made last second, right?
I understand that.
Hold on,
I heard this
last second, and
last second.
the
Yeah.
decision was the time we're going to lose in the box looking for tires is going to be less than the time we lose going around again. But but these guys are paid a lot of money to make these decisions. Surely, when you look outside and go, it's raining, maybe we should get some, I don't know, green stripe tires out ready just in case. Like,
My question is, why did they need to look for them? Surely they're in the mouth of the garage.
Ferrari.
Surely. This is what I'm saying. Like I understand Charles that he said, I called it as I was entering the pit lane. I know the pit lane is slow, but the guys who get the wheel got the who get to the take the wheels off, they were there. Surely the tires are somewhere close to there. I might not be a genius, but I know that that is the kind of mistake that you know how I know that you can do it? Because Checo came in a lap before and his tires are ready. He didn't lose any time. So when Checo came in a lap before and put on his inters, someone at Ferrari didn't say, "Have the inters ready, lads. We're gonna, there is no excuse for it." And when I mean no excuse, I mean there is no excuse for any of the teams, but especially a team like Ferrari. And when we say they're not game ready, they have bad strategy calls. It is getting to it, well, it has gotten to a stage, not even getting to a stage. It has gotten to a stage where heads have to start rolling because a team that is worth that much money and um, has that much of a following, you cannot have these mistakes.
That
I'd
does.
rather than I. It's unacceptable.
Do you think? I think Carlos is out the door. He's got one foot out the door already. He's looking for something
I
else. Either
think I think Carlos will leave. I mean,
that
if that's what you're saying, then
that's what I'm
100%,
saying. I think Carlos has had
100%.
enough. He's tied till the end of next year. I think he's already looking. We've already heard the rumors about Audi, and that makes sense. Andreas Seidel's there. Makes total sense. Who in the top echelon of drivers looks at Ferrari and goes, they're a promising prospect?
Only driver who looks at Ferrari and says that is a step up for me
Albon.
is Albon and maybe one of the drivers at Alpine if they get kicked out. Other than that, other than that, there is no one on the grid that will
Or
be
they
unless they're trying to unless it's Lewis, unless it's Lewis trying to rebuild the team, which I don't think he's wants to do, is young enough to do anything like that. They are becoming so quickly a joke. They're kicking themselves. They're kicking themselves out of the young prospects market.
he I just had this thought.
Have
They've got a history of this. They bring back Kimmy. They take it Fernando Alonso twice. They've they've always got an older driver. Do you think they
they
go
didn't take Fernando twice? That was McLaren, my boy.
McLaren, yeah, sorry. But he was there when he was a bit older. They've always got an older
Yes.
driver. Do you think
Yeah.
that they look at Daniel and they go, marketable, doesn't crash the car, will get results. It will be happy to play second fiddle. I'm not saying it will, but could you see that
They
as an option?
they might look at him, but Danny Rick might say, this Alpha Tauri is getting 50% Red Bull parts next year. I'll take my chances. Like that's what I'm getting at. Like the
100%.
even this is going to be mental. When I see Albon right now, right?
Mm.
And I go and I'm looking at the trajectories of both teams. And I'm going, this guy used to work at Mercedes. We're making quick improvements. I'm the center of this team. We've outraced Ferrari in a couple of races. We're pretty close to them at some tracks. If by the time next year rolls around, I might be able to swindle them for some more money, and some a few decent upgrade packages. But by the time next year comes around, I reckon, and as unlikely as it might seem, those that thought process has to be taking place. Has to be. Don't you can't say that the way that car is, the way that the drivers talk about that car, the way that the teams keep making mistakes. It's like who's in charge of the loony of the asylum, kind of thing. It's just a comedy of errors.
It it
I'd
it
rather my team be terrible with a terrible car than a car that shows glimpses, but on any given weekend, some part of that team fucks up.
it 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 doesn't make sense. Like a team that big with that much resources, that much money should not be this shit
No, it's
constantly.
inexcusable.
It
And
it
and
just
the other thing is the drivers aren't bad. I think they both have faults,
mm-hmm.
and I think one of Leclerc's biggest faults is getting highlighted more and more so with probably one of the faults of that car, and I
Mm-hmm.
think he's not helping the team by constantly crashing these cars. Um, and I think there's no excuse for it because science has definitely slowed down on the amount of crashes he is having in that car as well. Um, but like as a team, there's faults in Carlos's performances this year. There's faults in Charles's performances this year. There's faults in the pit. There's faults in the strategy. There's faults in the pit. In pit stops. There's probably faults above in terms of bringing upgrades to the car that haven't seemed to work. They've had a pretty decent upgrade that hasn't brought. I think I was seeing something. They're the only team, like one only. I think that there's only two teams that have gone back from the start of the year, and one of them is Ferrari, and I think the other one is Haas. They're the only two teams that have lost time to Red Bull from the start of the year.
Maybe
That's
Aston in that
crazy.
group too.
No, I
Yeah.
think Aston is closer, but everyone else has leapfrogged them.
Yeah,
But
okay, I see what you're saying.
because like Alonso was finishing still 35 seconds behind Max with yellow flags at the start of the year.
Hmm.
So for everyone to be closer, except Ferrari, and they've apparently had like a 1/10, I think between 1 and 2 tenths of a second on average, slower than they were at the start of the year. I mean, it's like
You
I've
know,
said it before, it's unacceptable.
but you know what we've got to look forward to?
Monza,
Monza, where the pressure's on.
the pressure's on, man.
That's my favorite. They
The,
they can't they can't
the
get anything
pressure
right,
is on.
and then we go to Monza. Yeah, it's going to be excellent,
It's it's gonna be it's gonna be Williams for a top five.
mate. I was about to ask you for some predictions. So I think you're right. I think Albon it could be pushing for a top five on that track with that car
I think our this is gonna sound crazy, and I know it's gonna sound crazy, but
podium.
I'm gonna say it anyway. I reckon Albon might be on for a podium.
A
Not
lot of
even not even joking. I know a lot of things have to go his way, but if there's one track
yeah.
that car is built for, because we know now that it performs well in the rain and it performs well down a straight. Um, so whether it's raining or not, I think that car is going to be grease lightning next weekend.
If you had said to me in 2021 that Daniel Ricciardo was going to win Monza in a McLaren, I would have laughed at you. So I'm not discounting anything
Yeah.
because the
Oh,
McLaren
I
had
don't think
similar characteristics. It was
I don't. I'm not
very
even going to
slippery.
say. I'm not going to say he's going to win.
No,
I'm
but
taking a few things into consideration. I'm going to take
hmm,
into consideration Checo will probably do something stupid.
out in Q3.
Who knows what he'll do? In the race, he might do something stupid.
Hmm.
But I'm going to say podium because it's a wild prediction. But in terms of, I think like if they can execute a good game plan, top five is definitely on the cards for that car.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
100%.
Um, Anything else prediction wise?
Um, Max's winning streak comes to an end.
Well, have you seen the statistic? The last 5 years, the person that's won Monza the year before has always DNF the year after.
It wouldn't surprise me. And what wouldn't surprise me if it was like a corner one, lap one incident.
Mm.
Like that first corner of restarts, if there's a safety car off the start of the race, it can be such a lottery. Someone 4 cars back, all they have to do is miss their braking zone. Some strolling ball hits 3 cars. It wouldn't be hard. But I'm just going to say it is hard to win 9 races in a row.
Mm.
The statistics would say, well, it's hard for a team to win every race in a year. So the statistics would say that it has to come to an end sooner rather than later. And you know what? Why not? Why not?
100%. 100%. I think the strolling ball or the tennis ball, after the rumors this week, could do some
That his
damage off that
retirement.
start. Yeah. To play
Yeah, yeah.
tennis.
Is it to play tennis, like
He, yeah,
semi-professionally, or just to go home and play tennis?
no, professionally he wants to play tennis professionally. Apparently, I think it's bullshit, but
Oh
yeah,
my
that's
goodness.
that's the rumor. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think McLaren will be strong this weekend with their car.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a few cars that I think will be strong. Like obviously the Red Bulls will be strong, the Alpines will be strong, the McLarens will be strong, Albon will be strong. Hopefully, Sargent is also strong. So I probably shouldn't say podium is on the cards, but I do. I believe, like I think this weekend we saw on pace, Albon probably should have had the pace to come sixth, probably even fifth if he hadn't stayed on those wet tires, those dry tires during the wet, he probably would have even been ahead of Science. So
I think Williams and Alex are looking at this weekend, going, "This is our chance for the best result of the year." 100%.
yeah, and I think they should. I think they should be. Like I think Spa sort of fell apart for them. They made a few
Mm.
mistakes, and the weather wasn't great. But this is the track that is built for that car.
I I
This is the
love this track.
Monaco of the Williams car.
I love this track.
I love watching it. I hate racing it. I think it's a
Every
boring track to race.
Yeah, 100%. But every year it throws up good racing.
Yeah, and I
Every
think I
year.
think we're on a I think we're on a great sort of run of form for races as well. Where the study was very negative. Anthony was putting in
Mm.
his negative Nancy predictions every weekend. Ever since he's left us, the racing's looking up. Never want him to come back. You know, take this good run of form and let's extend it for as long as possible. Um, so yeah, realistically, we only got 3 more days before we see cars on track, which is
hmm
awesome. hopefully we have another banging race. I don't think we need rain for it to be a great race at Monza as well.
Please don't
Um,
rain. I'm sick of it.
I mean, I wouldn't say no because it still adds something. But
A slight drizzle, not rain, rain.
yeah, like a mid race
Yeah,
smattering, and you need to change tires.
yeah, that's
You know,
fine. But when it pours and
that's
they red
fine.
flag the race, no, thank you. Or they delay the
No,
start, no, thank you. So I think we'll leave it there, mate.
fair
Um,
call.
Thanks for jumping on, everyone. Thanks for listening. Keep liking, subscribing, all that jazz. Jump on the YouTubes and watch us on our channel. Our subscriber list is slowly getting more voluptuous. So uh, continue to do what you're doing, Joey, mate. Thanks for jumping on.
Saucy word.
Yeah, it was very saucy way to end the pod. Um, and yeah, looking forward to the Temple of Speed this weekend.